Nadia Kamoona is an Iraqi-American student at the University of Virginia, from which all good things come, a future international human rights lawyer, and this summer has been an intern for World Beyond War. Nadia.
It's truly a pleasure to be up here. I have not contributed as much as all the great speakers that spoke before me. I hope to be able to do half of what you guys have been doing so far. What I do have is only my story to tell, as I have been a witness to war, as I have lived through war, and I can tell what it is like. My narrative started before I was even born. I remember when my mom was 6 months pregnant with me, and in the middle of the night she gets a call from my grandfather waking her up, saying, "Have you seen the news? Have you heard what's happened?" And my mom is still, just woken up from sleep. She goes like, "No, what's going on?" He was like, "Saddam just invaded Kuwait. Our country has went to war." And so from there on, the first moment was like, okay, what to do now? And from getting supplies and then having to leave our home and trying to find safe refuge. And then the second idea was knowing that our life is forever changed. After that, I was born into the midst of all this in Baghdad. And then when I was 2 months old, Bush Jr. came on the news. Bush Sr. came on to say that we are going to, that the war in Iraq, that was Desert Storm, is happening. And so when I was 2 months, my parents had to also leave home again, leave Baghdad, and they go to like some small villages where there's no electricity, there's no gas, there's nothing, there's generators, they'll only work for a couple of hours, so we had to sleep with oil lamps, and my parents would wake up and see me, I had oil fumes all over my face. And so from there on, that was my childhood. It was never a normal one. I lived after the war. People think war was over, but I lived through political sanctions and prosecution and dictatorship, and we were forever, our lives were defined by that. Our economy was destroyed, and political sanctions meant that we could not get clothes or food from outside. So my mom had to sew all our clothes, even our pajamas, and we had to eat homemade ice cream. And so I grew like that until when I was 12 years old. Finally, Bush Jr. came on the news to warn us that a war is going to happen if Saddam does not have his WMDs. We were all against Saddam at the time, but we knew he had no WMDs. So whoever could flee the country did, and so took refuge in Syria. As we saw the war happening before our eyes, we sat across the news, and then we saw they took down Saddam. And for a moment, we deluded ourselves that yes, maybe we'll buy in this whole idea of that, oh, democracy is going to come from war, that Saddam is gone, and then maybe there's a better Iraq to go back to. So we went back home, believing in that notion. And the minute that we crossed the borders, we knew there's no such thing. In war, there's no peace. I remember we still were going to school, we were trying to live our normal lives. And then I was in my 8th grade, it was my 4th class, I had a French class, and we were just sitting as teenagers and passing notes with my friends, and then all of a sudden, we thought it was an earthquake happened. Everything tumbled, we were in shock for a couple of seconds, and then we opened our eyes, everything was still, there's black fumes everywhere. Once we were able to kind of see what happened, we realized the windows were down, there's bombing, and then until we finally walked out of the school in shock and terror. They had bombed the police station across our street, and our school was damaged as well. Anyways, from there, war defined the life of every Iraqi, and then we knew that we can't live our normal lives, so we escaped Iraq. And I was one of the lucky ones that was able to leave in one piece with all of my family members intact. And what I want to take out of this is that just 2 weeks ago I was in North Carolina for Veterans for Peace conference, which I had the pleasure to be at. And I met Iraq veterans. And I had the pleasure of meeting them because they're veterans who fought on the other side in 2003 when I was in Iraq. But for some reason, they have realized the same realization that I had of war, that there were they weren't fighting the enemies there, they were creating the enemies. They weren't relieving any pain, that they were causing pain when they were there. And it was remarkable because all these men and women, when they realized that, they stood up, they didn't want to fight this war anymore. They didn't want to go back to Iraq, they didn't want to fight in Iraq. And, but somehow they either ended up in jail or they ended up being prosecuted by the government for saying that. And then kind of believed in war. Who are then the heroes? Who are the winners if both sides have kind of the same notion about it? And then that kind of reminded me of George Orwell in his 1984, when he says in Oceania, and there's a Ministry of Truth that has 3 slogans: war is peace, freedom, slavery, ignorance is strength. When I read that first time I read that novel, I thought, oh my God, he's describing life under Saddam, under a dictator. But then with years went by, now I realize that we're all living in Oceania. It doesn't matter if you're under a dictator or not. We're all buying this lie, that we're all buying that war is peace when the US and NATO go for a premeditated war, or war to bring democracy, make us believe that war is peace. Yet that's very contradictory in itself, because you cannot go to war to prevent war. And then the fact that we actually buy into that idea of democracy, that we actually believe that that is our freedom, make us our slaves to that freedom. And that is what freedom is, slavery. And then finally, that we all accept these contradictions and lies and go by doing nothing. We question no authorities, nothing. And then that makes our ignorance their strength. And that's what he said, ignorance is strength. So today, what I want you to take from anything I said or did is that the deep belief that there is no strength in being ignorant, that there is no freedom in being enslaved, and most importantly, there is definitely no peace in war, and that war is not peace. Your strength in the knowledge of what war is and what war does, and what you can do about it. The freedom is the actions that you take from that knowledge. And then finally, peace can only come once we use those knowledge and action to stop war with every power that we have. And I don't have any knowledge. I feel action is so simple. It's not about being a president stopping it. And I feel one smaller step would be just taking the pledge for World Beyond War and saying, I take the pledge. I am against any war, and saying that war is never peace. So let's hope for a world beyond war.